Hello and welcome to Cartoon Rewind, Tiny, Tiny Toon Adventures Part 7. Today we're starting off with episode 25, Buster and the Wolverine. For the animation, I'd have to give it a 4.5 out of 5. It starts off pretty low quality, and then it goes back and forth. There's some spots where the animation looks pretty good, and then it'll go back to looking bad again, and then it'll end up being passable, but not great. So in total, the animation would be a 4.5. Music. For the plot, the episode is a parody of the Peter and the Wolf. Had a pretty good idea of how the episode was going to play out, but there was some good jokes and a few nice surprises. So it's a 7. For characters, for Buster, Babs, Plucky, Hampton, Sweetie, and Furball, Plucky stole the show and he got most of the best lines. Buster got a few good lines in, but Plucky is the one that makes the episode the most enjoyable. So characters is a 7. So for overall enjoyment, I have to give it a 5 out of 5. If the animation had been so poor, this probably would have been a much better episode. Up next is the episode 26, You Asked For It, Part 2. The animation is decent. There's not a lot of detail, the characters go off model quite a bit, but it's not as extreme as some of the previous episodes. So the animation, I'd have to say, is a 6. Music is a 10. The plot, there are 3 stories in this episode. The first story has Hampton and Dizzy in a odd couple parody called The Weird Couple. And it pretty much plays out exactly as you would expect. Hampton, being the neat freak, gets driven crazy by Dizzy's raucous behavior. The second story is Return of the Toxic Revenger, which has Plucky battling Montana Max. And it's probably the best of the Toxic Revenger segments so far. And thirdly is another Hampton story where he is trying to go on a diet, but he keeps getting tempted by a chocolate cake. And all the crazy lengths he goes to not eat the cake and to protect his diet. All in all, each story was enjoyable. They weren't laugh rights from beginning to end, but each segment had a few good laughs in them. The Toxic Revenger one being the one that stands out the most. So the plot is a 6. For the characters, of the 3 segments, the Toxic Revenger segment was the most entertaining because Plucky is probably the character who the writers can get a lot of mileage out of. Hampton is fine, and so was Dizzy. So a 6.5 seems about right. And for overall enjoyment, I had to give the episode a 6.5. It's not one of the all-time great episodes, but it's not completely bad either. It just falls into being a little bit forgettable. And now we come to episode 27, Europe in 30 Minutes. For the animation, it's much better than the some of the previous episodes we've had recently. So I'd have to give it a 7. The characters stay on model for the most part, and the characters resemble more what they're supposed to look like, and the detail is generally pretty good. Music is a 10. The plot, the first half of the episode is Buster, Hampton, Plucky, and Babs going from country to country in like a rapid fire until they land in England, and then they have to stop a kidnapping plot against Sir Charles and Princess Diana. The plot, I'd say, is a 7.5. For the characters, they're pretty funny. Buster gets a number of good lines and good scenes. Babs gets multiple ones. Plucky gets also a number of good scenes and good gags. And Hampton even gets a few. So for characters, I have to give it a 7.5. So for this episode, the overall enjoyment, I'd have to say is 7.5. I enjoyed this episode much more than some of the previous ones we've had recently. And while it's not in the top tier, it's definitely an improvement. And I'm looking forward to seeing the next episode. Hopefully, can continue in this direction. And last but not least, we come to episode 28, Wacko World of Sports. The animation in this episode is pretty good. Characters stayed on model and look consistent from story to story and scene to scene. So animation is 7.5. Music is a 10. For the plot, the first story is Montana Max does a golf tournament, but picks only people he can beat. And the only person that can beat him is Buster, who he doesn't let enter. So it's up to Buster to take Montana Max down a peg. The second story is about Dizzy and Furball trying to get into a baseball game to see Acme University play against Perfecto Prep, and trying to stay one step ahead of Arnold the Pitbull because they didn't pay to get in. And then the third story is Buster and Babs going up against their rivals, Rubella and Roderick Rat, who opened a mini golf but only want rich people. So it's up to Buster and Babs to teach Rubella and Roderick a lesson by beating them in mini golf. For the plot, I have to say it's a 7.5. All the all three stories were interesting and engaging and and funny. For the characters, I'd have to give it an 8 because all three stories all had really funny moments, and each of the characters got their time to shine. Specifically in the last story with Buster and Babs, who got to use their Biff and Buffy Vanderbunny personas for the second time in a row. For characters, it's an 8. And for overall enjoyment, I have to say this episode was very enjoyable. It got better as it went along. So for overall enjoyment, I have given an 8. Well, till next time, see ya.